What's up, you guys? So I decided to go the month of May without any alcohol. Honestly, of all of the challenges that I've undertaken so far this year, this was by far the easiest. It wasn't so much to do something difficult. I think for me, it was much more about facing social pressure and exploring restraint. Originally, I recorded this whole intro and explained my reasoning, but that's basically it. There's this weird disconnect because it's a leading cause of death and disease worldwide, and yet I see it everywhere. And I realized that I'm doing some stuff simply because I see other people doing it, and that's not a good enough reason. Binge drinking is really common with people my age in particular, and I feel like I've often participated in drinking out of fear of missing out, which I think is totally the wrong reason to do it. I didn't feel very cool in school, and so I don't know, I think that led into kind of a sense of insecurity as a short little guy, and that played into my decision making. So I'm sitting here editing this video and eating peanut butter. That's completely irrelevant, and I'm almost out. It's not good. Anyway, I'm editing this piece and realizing that there's no way to make this sound cool, no matter how I spin it. One of my goals has been to try and make self-improvement more approachable. And my method of doing that has been to try and make things fun and light. This honestly isn't really either of those things, okay? So full disclaimer. Look, in my defense, I will say Tyler, the creator, has apparently said that he doesn't drink either, okay? So I'm not in bad company. So this was really an interesting experiment for me. During this month of no alcohol, a lot of interesting things came up. So I'm a real beginner on this topic, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the 5 Buddhist precepts, which is something that I came across recently. These are commitments that Buddhist people make to abstain from killing living beings, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and intoxication. The idea is that these precepts help you develop your mind and help you progress towards enlightenment. The interesting thing about this is that they're really not rules. They're kind of like suggestions. Ultimately, what you're doing is you're making a commitment to yourself. So I did some reading about this, and the 5th precept, which is the one that interests me the most with regards to this little challenge that I did, has a lot of fascinating interpretations. Some say that the purpose of this 5th precept is to help you observe the other 4. I read that intoxication can be seen as moving away from reality, which is the opposite of what meditation does. And one interpretation that I really liked was a little bit broader. Intoxication can take obviously the form of drugs and alcohol, but it can be a lot more than that. You can intoxicate your own mind with doctrines or fanaticism. In other words, just be humble. That being said, there are apparently a lot of Japanese Zen priests that drink a lot. So I don't know, I think this is just food for thought more than anything. The thing that I wasn't expecting from all of this was more than the challenge itself, which wasn't hard at all. I found it difficult to figure out where I stand. What do I want my relationship with these kinds of things to be? Like what is my decision-making process? There seems to be like this huge range in opinions. Nietzsche, for example, was this German philosopher, and he was completely anti-alcohol. His whole thing was that alcohol numbs pain, and growth and accomplishment inevitably have painful aspects to them, which I think that's true. I have gone through periods where I have consumed a lot more alcohol, and this corresponded with an increase in social interactions, a lot more friends, a lot more going out, but it also feels like it corresponded with a lowering in the quality of the interactions. I can't remember that many super interesting or thought-provoking conversations from those times. You think you're saying something profound when you're drunk, but it's not, it's really not. I don't want to say that all of that wasn't fun. It definitely was, but when I think about the bigger picture of my life, those periods didn't really contribute that much value. I really don't want to come across as a hard ass here. I know that it's perfectly okay to have fun, but I can't help but think that I could have been using my time and energy in a more meaningful way. So it's only been 3 days of this experiment, but I've already had a couple of opportunities to kind of test things out. And I thought I'd give a little bit of an update. A couple of days ago, I went to a party with French people. That might seem like an unimportant fact, but the reason that I mention it is because I discovered alcohol when I moved to France 5 years ago. I had an amazing time while I was living there, and so being in this kind of environment brought back a lot of memories. Just like everything that I'm doing on this channel, I am just approaching this with a lot of curiosity. I don't want to come from this place of like moral superiority. And so it was really interesting. It was hilarious actually, observing everybody around me, people speak, their mannerisms, their gestures, because it's like this middle ground between their normal selves and like a 7-year-old. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I feel like whenever I drink, it's kind of like I'm putting a thick piece of plastic between me and my thoughts and what's going on in my mind. I know that alcohol makes it easier to socialize. It breaks down some of the barriers, but it doesn't help you get better at socializing, I feel like. So I don't know. It was fun though. I did have a good time without alcohol, which is kind of cool. The middle way is what the Buddhist tradition considers the first teaching that the Buddha delivered after his awakening. And he was talking about this idea of going somewhere in between the extremes of self-indulgence and self-mortification. If I had to boil this down into one word, it's basically moderation. I personally have a hard time with this because I see extremeness kind of all over the place these days. There are extremes in politics, and not just that, it's like there are extreme reactions that people now have to politics. People also seem to have extreme relationships with diets, or extreme reactions to diets. And on places like YouTube, it's the most extreme content that's gonna get the most views and attention. To some degree, I'm participating in that, because I am taking on challenges and trying to push myself to grow and expand. Sometimes, like an insane idea will really excite me because something about the challenge is enticing. And I don't think that that is necessarily a bad thing in and of itself. I think it's important to push yourself and find out where your limits and your boundaries are. That has just always been my way of learning and my style of living life, So that's just kind of my opinion on things. For me personally, I think this goes way beyond creating limitations with alcohol. I'm a little bit concerned about imposing too much rigidity in my life and preventing myself from being able to be spontaneous if I want to be. I think discipline is super important in this world and in this time period in particular, but sometimes I'm concerned about getting too married to a particular idea that I have in my head rather than reality and how I actually operate. Just because I think it's cool to do things a certain way, maybe I saw a video somewhere, maybe somebody told me about this new trend that's happening, doesn't mean that it makes sense for me. 2 days ago, I went to see a few friends to watch a movie and hang out and chat for a while. And I bought some beers and a kombucha and took it with me. I had every intention of drinking again and just enjoying the evening with them. But when I was there, I just kind of felt like the alcohol wasn't going to add anything to my experience. I really didn't need it to be able to enjoy my time with them, to be able to enjoy the conversations, and so I didn't drink. And at this point, I kind of still don't fully know where I stand, but I don't really have any intentions to start drinking again. I don't know, beyond all the health benefits, obviously, I enjoy not feeling sick to my stomach or hungover or whatever. I just would rather be present, or as present as I can be in any and every situation. For the record, all this talk about Buddhism is not at all meant to come across as like, I'm enlightened now. I just thought it would be a cool way to sort of add depth to this conversation about alcohol. I really think that Buddhism is interesting. It's something that I want to explore more. And I love this idea of commitments to yourself. It's not anybody else imposing anything on you. It's your own decision to live a certain way. I like that a lot because I think I like the idea of me taking on more responsibility for my own decisions and actions. I don't think it happens all the time, but occasionally I'll say something or do something that I later regret. I'm kind of like, why did I do that? For me, this speaks to kind of a dissonance between my values and my actions. And I want to close that gap. I do want to say, I don't think I'm like renouncing alcohol forever. I think I want it to mean something. I want it to be something that I consume only on special occasions, like when it matters, when it's meaningful, saying goodbye to somebody or celebrating a really important day. I don't know, I guess this is sort of an open-ended video. I'm just expressing some of my thoughts and reflections from this experience. This was cool. I recommend doing this if this seemed interesting to you. So that pretty much covers all my thoughts on this topic. I hope you found this interesting. Feel free to leave a comment down below if you've done something like this before or if you're going through something like this right now. I'd be curious to know what you think. You can follow my Instagram or sign up to my newsletter if you want to keep up with future projects like this. And take a look at my Patreon page if you're interested in more bonus content. Yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.